Heads twisted around, cartoons in the real world, tornadoes, and train crashes. It's pure pandemonium on today's amazing effects, but can you guess how it was done before we show you? As always, you got a bunch of clips in front of you there. You're gonna watch the clip and try to figure out how they did the effect with what they had available to them at that time.
Yes, and then I kiss, kiss, kiss.
You want to kiss, kiss, kiss.
Yes, pressing play. No, I'm not. Hello? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ooh, how fun. Isn't it they just built a prop that they melted slowly but then sped it up to quickly melt?
So they just actually melted it and just sped it up.
If you're a cinephile like myself, I guarantee you shouted the answer out already. This is one of the more well-known and one of my favorite effects. This whole sequence is an amazing mix of practical and optical, but this face melt moment is just so genius. The first step in creating it was making a mold of the actor's head using alginate, which is the same thing dentists use to make molds of teeth. Because they needed this to melt fast, they created a special kind of alginate using gelatin. Then layers upon layers would be molded and placed under the prosthetic face, with each layer being painted a different shade of red and adding yarn to create the look of veins. The fake head was then put between two propane heaters, and Chris Wallace, who did the special effects makeup effects, aimed a handful of heat guns from underneath, moving it as necessary to even out the melting process. They shot this in one long take, which took about 10 minutes for the face to melt completely. Then it was sped up in the lab, and that was it. They had one of the most iconic shots of all time. So much so that creatives to this day still obsess over it, like myself or even the Corridor crew who recently remade the effect on their channel. True ingenuity always stands the test of time.
So this is like for the interaction of him and the animation, right?
I know that would be an insane challenge as an actor to have nothing there, but that seems so fun.
They just hand drew onto the footage and then they used people moving stuff to move like the props and stuff inside the scene.
Yeah, there's just nothing there. He just did it like this with some eye lines, and then they just put our friend in later.
Directed by Robert Zemeckis, Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1988, right as early CG was starting to pop up in films like Tron in 1982, The Last Starfighter in 1984, and Young Sherlock Holmes in 1985. But it was still limited, expensive, and not used for compositing or animation like we think of today. So instead, Roger Rabbit went fully analog. Over 1,000 visual effects shots were done by hand, with more than 326 animators spending 14 months to create over 82,000 individually hand-drawn and hand-painted cells. Each one was then composited into the live-action footage frame by frame by ILM using optical printers. But the thing that really sums up their approach is what they call bumping the lamp, which was coined from this scene here where Eddie and Roger are handcuffed together and repeatedly bumping the overhead lamp throughout the scene. The swinging lamp caused a constant shift in the light and shadow, which the animators then had to painstakingly track frame by frame over a fully hand-drawn character. They would also adjust the perceived light intensity on Roger according to how close he was to the lamp, then even made his ear transparent in the light, and all of this using multiple lighting maps, including base color, shadow, highlight, and rim to give the character depth and dimensionality. The fact that they managed this frame by frame, often over real moving lights, is part of why Roger Rabbit still holds up today. But bumping the lamp isn't just about light, it's about putting in those extra details that glue it to the real world, like the light, but also the interaction with actual objects in the scene, like the handcuffs here, or a chair, or even water. One of the best examples of that is this scene right here. And that's a scene only possible because of the immense skill involved. And speaking of skill, before we get into that shot, let's take a look at today's sponsor, Skillshare. If you're trying to sharpen your creative skills or you're just getting started, Skillshare is a great resource with thousands of classes covering everything from filmmaking and animation to illustration, design, photography, and on and on. You've got classes on Blender, After Effects, Unreal Engine, color grading, and cinematography like this one from my friend Joe Simon. And even if you've been wanting to get into drawing so that you can make your own storyboards, here you go. And it's not just about making things. Nowadays, being a storyteller means building your own audience to tell those stories too. And there are some great classes to help you get started with that, like this one from MKBHD or these on social marketing. I mean, it is a fact that we can't just create stuff. We have to figure out how to get people to find it. And as modern creatives, we have to wear more hats than ever before. We're the talent, the studio, the marketing department, so resources like Skillshare really do open up new doors of what's possible for you. The lessons are all broken broken down into bite-sized segments so you can move at your own pace. But the best part is the first 500 people to click the link in the description or scan this QR code will receive a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. So get started today. But now, let's get back to Roger Rabbit. This specific scene was one of the more difficult scenes to pull off for the film. The filmmakers had to build the set 8 feet off the ground so that the puppeteers could be beneath it to move trays around on rods in the designated track. The pianos were also on their own hydraulic lifters and collapsible legs were installed so the instruments would react to the animated characters' performances. And for the octopus bartender, they put the objects on strings and had the puppeteers give it movement and a flowy appearance. On top of all that, they shot many of those scenes twice, once with a reference model or puppet to establish an eye line and to give the animators reference, and once for the actual scene. The level of precision and problem solving that went into bringing this film to life genuinely blows my mind to this day.
Days of Thunder, I've never seen this.
Also haven't seen this. Lightning McQueen would have smoked Tom Cruise's ass.
What is the effect? They crashed. There's a crash. And they're driving fast.
Yeah, I mean, the opening shot is definitely a real race, it looks like.
These are just men racing. What is the effect?
This one is incredibly cool because they didn't just stage racing scenes, they shot inside an actual NASCAR race. They put 2 fully rigged out picture cars, which is what Hollywood calls vehicles used on camera, into an actual 3-hour event, right alongside professional NASCAR drivers. Those picture cars were only in the race for the first 100 miles, but in that window, they had 28 cameras rolling, mounted on cars, on the track, just all of the places. And at the time, it was the most cameras ever used simultaneously on a film production. Shockingly, the picture car in the real race was not driven by Tom Cruise. That was done by professionals. But Tom Cruise and other cast members did get behind the wheel for stage racing scenes where they had to drive, act, and trigger the cameras themselves, much like they did for the latest Top Gun film.
This is still such a fun watch.
She's that good. She can turn her own head around.
That actually still doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look, okay, it's like super great.
This is a totally fair reaction by Bruce Willis. A backwards Meryl Streep. Nah, I'm okay.
So my guess is they shot this scene twice, once with a body double backwards, and then once forward with her facing forward.
Either her or a stunt double play it backwards, and then she did her headshot later.
Death Becomes Her is the second Robert Zemeckis film in this episode, and I love it. It's weird, dark, funny, and loaded with great effects, like this moment with Streep's head spun around. This one was originally going to be done with an animatronic puppet head, but the end result was not what they were hoping for. So instead, they turned further into compositing. They filmed 3 live-action plates using a motion control system. The first was with Streep wearing a stretchy blue hood over her head and walking backward. The second was a clean plate, and the third involved Streep's performance in a blue bodysuit against a blue screen. In post, that blue hood was digitally removed off the first plate and replaced with the corresponding area from the clean plate. Then Streep's head from in front of the blue screen was comped onto the footage and matched moved frame by frame to match the body. Finally, a computer-generated twisted neck piece was molded, animated, and matched moved to fit between Meryl's body and the extracted head, bringing it all together into a shot that wasn't possible just a few years earlier.
More Death Becomes Her. How fun.
Feels green screened for some reason.
Yeah, her head's definitely on a blue screen.
Oh, wow. I have 0 frame of reference for the scene, so it's just kind of like seeing an AI video on TikTok where you're like, I'm not sure what the prompt was, but here we are.
So the body is practical in the scene, but they shot her head on a blue screen and then comped the 2.
Feels like the close-up of her head spitting the water out is a totally different piece, and then it's a Texas switch kind of stitched to the double version of this animatronic dead corpse.
The hole in the stomach was accomplished through multiple techniques. First, we have this moment of Goldie Hawn standing into frame, revealing the hole for the first time. For this specific shot, a headless dummy was built that would be lifted from a pole off frame with water pumped through once that hole was in shot. Then, similar to the twisted head effect, Hawn was shot separately on a blue screen, then composited and match moved over the dummy. For the full body shots, the rim of the wound was practical and the rest was done digitally. First, a makeup piece was designed to be worn by Goldie Hawn that would be the start of the final effect. This would allow them to keep the edge of that practical makeup, then rotoscope the center out, creating the illusion of the hole. To create depth, the hole was built as a 3D digital element, allowing it to shift with the camera's movement and respond to lighting and perspective. Then elements like the shovel passing through her stomach were filmed practically against a blue screen and composited into the shot as 2D elements, passing cleanly through the digital hole. It's a great example of multiple techniques coming together to create one incredibly effective sequence.
Yeah. Oh, well, what's this one? It's like Lucy.
I love the scene. The scene scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Twister, another one I haven't seen.
Dude, that has to be practical.
There's a tornado in this movie?
My guess is they built the set to where they could actually spin them and them actually hang upside down.
I feel like when they have them hanging, they actually would have been hanging vertically, and then they framed the camera to be sideways.
Twister came out in 1997 and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, but ultimately lost to Independence Day that year. And the project itself actually started as a visual effects test developed by ILM at the request of Steven Spielberg. Twister's behind the scenes overall is just as fascinating as the film itself, but the effect we're looking at today takes place during the film's climactic moment when Bill and Joe are nearly sucked up into a tornado. To accomplish this, they built the set on a rotating gimbal. They would then attach the camera and talent to this rig, so when they turned the set upside down, the actors would appear to be lifting up into the tornado since the camera moved in a fixed position with them. And we're dealing with a tornado, so of course there were large wind machines used to blow their hair and clothing in the right direction. Then in post, they could composite the tornado itself into the shot, layering it over a surprisingly convincing practical setup that sold the whole illusion. The real wind, real motion, and the real rotating rig gave them a grounded physical element that made everything around it feel believable.
Yes. An acid trip.
Yeah, I feel like this is just Darren Aronofsky tripping balls.
Bald Hugh Jackman is a fever dream.
This golden rain? I don't want to say golden shower, because that's not it.
That looks sick as hell.
Oh, this is a trip, dude.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Aerial footage of clouds, maybe?
When the budget for the fountain got slashed in half to $35 million during pre-production, Darren Aronofsky had to get creative with the film's trippy space visuals. Instead of relying on expensive CGI, he turned to a more hands-on method, macro photography. So Aronofsky brought in Peter Parks, a specialist who made these wild visuals by mixing chemicals and bacteria. Then he would film those reactions in extreme close-up. The whole process cost just $140,000 and produced a library of organic, surreal plates. In post, they were able to layer that footage to build these otherworldly space scenes that looked like nothing audiences had seen before.
Oh, hell yeah.
I have seen SkyFall because, like Penelope Cruz knows, Javier's a cutie.
Oh, they just did that.
Looks awesome, though.
Or miniatures? That looks too like real though.
Miniatures. Awesome miniatures.
I'm gonna say they just did it.
For the iconic SkyFall train crash, director Sam Mendes opted to go full Nolan and crash a real train. They built the set on the 007 stage at Pinewood Studios, rigging 2 full-size train carriages to a monorail system that would accelerate and crash them into the environment, with the whole thing captured by multiple remotely operated cameras. The underground tunnel was recreated using lightweight materials so the train could tear through it on impact without issue, and since each carriage weighed about 5 tons and reached speeds of 25 to 30 miles per hour, they needed a way to stop it safely. That ended up being 3 or 4 braking systems that triggered sequentially, slowing the train down in stages over a short distance, with the final stop being about 40 tons of sand, which was the last barrier for the train to slam into. The whole process was done in a single take and shot from 11 different camera angles, and it was done with such precision that Roger Deakins, the film's cinematographer, said that cameras were placed just 3 feet from where they were told the train would stop, and it hit the mark exactly, allowing every single one of their shots to be usable. My favorite thing about doing this series is looking back at the mix of techniques over the years. Everything from the simplicity of macro photography all the way to motion control and CG. It's not about the process used, it's about solving problems in the best way for the story. Whether that's analog or digital, nothing really matters but the end result. But how many effects did you get right? Let us know below, and if you have a shot that you'd like to see us break down, let us know in the comments as well. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.